Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Friday Weekly Lunch and Learn. Every Friday, Sierra Club Iowa chapter goes live to give you an important update on environmental issues, and we have a big important one today. And Pam Mackey-Taylor, our chapter director, is going to tell us all about the Des Moines River and coal ash pollution that's happening down in southeast Iowa. So if you're not sure what it is, tune in because we're going to learn what it is and what the impacts are and what we can do about it. So I will share my screen and hand it off to Pam. So thank you very much, Pam.
Thank you, Jess. So let's start out and discuss what is coal ash and where does it come from. So when coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant, there are leftovers called residuals or coal combustion residuals. And among those things is coal ash. Coal ash has several forms. One form is fly ash. That's a very fine, powdery substance. It's mostly silica. Then there's bottom ash, and that consists of coarse particles. It forms in the bottom of the coal furnace. Another product is boiler slag, and that's molten bottom ash that turns into pellets. They have a smooth, glassy appearance after cooling in water. And then there's a series of products that are called flue gas desulfurization material. And that's what's left over after the emissions are processed to remove sulfur dioxide. Now, it can be wet or it could be a dry powder, but it's calcium sulfite and calcium sulfate. And then there's some other residues, things that are pulled out of the air emissions after scrubbing, cenospheres, which are a spherical substance, or fluidized combustion waste. Now, the next slide has a diagram of a coal plant and the smokestack, and it talks about where these coal ash residues come from. So in the middle of the page, on the left, there's a boiler or furnace, and the bottom ash is at the bottom, and then that is directly taken from the boiler and taken to the coal ash pond. Then there's fly ash that is extracted through a series of fabric filters. And the fabric filters can also pull out mercury. That's called Hg on this chart. And then there's a flue gas desulfurization process. That's that canister looking item in the chain. And that pulls out the sulfur dioxide. And then all of those things that are pulled out are put into the coal ash pond. Now, from the coal ash pond, this diagram shows it going directly into the river, but it could also go to a sewage treatment plant or some kind of processing plant to remove the harmful chemicals out of the coal ash. So let's go on and talk about disposal. Now, coal ash contains toxic and hazardous contaminants, among them mercury, cadmium, arsenic, and there are others. They can pollute water bodies, groundwater, and drinking water. And because of that, there are rules for safe disposal. And all of this brings us to the Ottumwa Generating Station. Now, let's start out with some maps. So Ottumwa is in very southern Iowa, southeastern Iowa. It's southeast of Des Moines. On this map, the yellow portion south of Ottumwa is Missouri. And you can see that Ottumwa isn't far from Fairfield. It's not far from Bloomfield. And actually, it's not even far from Fort Madison. So we're talking very southeast Iowa. And to give you a feel for where the coal ash plant is, or the site is, and the Ottumwa Generating Station is, the next slide will show you where those things are located. So the Ottumwa Generating Station is the red dot. And then the city of Ottumwa is southeast of there. And then there is a diagonal ribbon looking, it's almost like a ribbon that is the Des Moines River. And that goes all the way from the Ottumwa Generating Station down through the very tip of Lee County and then runs into Missouri. So let's talk about the Ottumwa Generating Station itself. The power plant, as I said, is north of Ottumwa. It's in Wabalo County, close to the Des Moines River. The plant is co-owned by Interstate Power and Light, and we sometimes know that as Alliant. It's a subsidiary of Alliant. And it's also co-owned by Mid-American Energy, and Mid-American is owned by Berkshire Hathaway. IPL is the operator, which means they're responsible for the day-to-day operation of the plant. They're responsible for getting the permits and taking care of the coal ash disposal. There is one coal-fired generator at the plant. And on the campus itself, there are two on-site coal ash ponds. Now, they've both been closed due to groundwater contamination, and they're being monitored. One of those coal ash ponds is 36 acres. It's called the Zero Liquid Discharge Pond. And the second one is 72 acres, and that's the OGS ash pond. Now, as I said, those are closed. So Ottumwa Generating Station is using another landfill. It's off-site. It's across the river, 5.5 miles east of the coal plant. It sits on 24 acres, and that's called the Ottumwa Midland Landfill. And again, that's still north of Ottumwa. Now, the Ottumwa Midland Landfill it's a giant pit with a clay liner. You can think of it almost like a cereal bowl. And water that enters the landfill moves through the coal ash, and it collects toxic chemicals that it comes into contact with. And that is called leachate. Now, the liner is supposed to keep leachate from leaving the landfill and entering the ground fill around the landfill. When the landfill was built, a series of pipes called the underdrain were installed below the pit. Now, these pipes collect the groundwater that is moving up toward the landfill, and it is supposed to keep the landfill dry. IPL pumps the groundwater and discharges it into a wetland, and that wetland flows to a creek and then into the Des Moines River north of Ottumwa. The mouth of the creek is near the city of Ottumwa's drinking water intake on the Des Moines River. Now, let's talk about the water pollution that's happening from the Midland landfill. IPL has a stormwater permit that allows the discharge of the stormwater and the uncontaminated groundwater from the landfill site. And so this would be the water that comes out of the underdrain. The discharges from the underdrain, unfortunately, are containing pollutants related to coal ash. There are 4 pollutants that are above the groundwater protection standards. That's cobalt, lithium, manganese, and molybdenum. There are other pollutants that are found in this underdrain liquid: arsenic, barium, boron, calcium, iron, magnesium, zinc, and some others. Now, this is very clearly a violation of the stormwater permit and the drinking water standards under the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act. Stormwater should not be contaminated with any of these chemicals. In August 2023, the Department of Natural Resources flagged that the underdrain discharge needed an additional permit. And we call those NPDES permits or NPDES permits. They are permits that are issued by the DNR to ensure that discharges into a water body do not have toxic levels or hazardous levels of pollutants. Now, IPL Alliant had 1 year to obtain the permit, but they didn't even bother to request one. So that takes us to the next stage. And that is in December 2024, they requested an NPDES permit to build a pipe from the landfill to the Des Moines River without treating the water before discharging it. Now, the discharge would include those chemicals that are found in coal ash. And clearly, this is unacceptable. And it was unacceptable when it was proposed, and it remains unacceptable. In March of 2025, the Sierra Club, along with the Iowa Environmental Council and the Environmental Law and Policy Center, issued a notice of a violation and intent to sue. And that's related to the NPDES permit and the discharges. In May of 2025, IPL responded with a new plan. Now, they say this is a temporary solution, and here's what it is. So the Ottumwa Water Pollution Control Facility would accept the underdrain groundwater, the underground liquid. And the pollution control facility is what we sometimes call a sewage treatment plant. And bear in mind, this underground is contaminated with these coal ash pollutants. The Midland landfill will collect the underdrain liquid in storage tanks. They'll have storage tanks on site at the landfill. And then a hauler will truck the liquid to the sewage treatment plant. And they also indicated that the liquid can be evaporated at the Ottumwa generating station as cooling water. So this remains a problem. And on the next slide, we'll talk about why that's a problem. Trucking the polluted underdrain water is expensive. And who picks up the cost for that? Everybody who buys their electricity from Alliant and MidAmerican. The city water treatment plant is not equipped to handle coal ash leachate. And that would also include the underdrain liquid. Biological settling and chemical settling are ineffective at removing some of the toxins and heavy metals from the underdrain liquid. The water treatment plant discharges into the Des Moines River. And downstream of this discharge from the sewage treatment plant are portions of Wapello County, Davis County, Van Buren County, and Lee County, plus the neighboring counties in Missouri. So IPL requested a permit to allow this temporary solution. And the Department of Natural Resources, that's the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, wrote a draft permit. Sierra Club and its allies are challenging the draft permit. And that draft permit sets unsatisfactory limits on the pollution or the pollutants that can be discharged. And that's why we're concerned. So in conclusion, a permanent solution is needed. The only real solution is to shut down the plant and transition fully to solar and wind power, and with that include battery power. The people in Ottumwa and the people living downstream of the coal plant on the Des Moines River deserve to know that the water they drink is safe, that the fish they catch and eat out of the Des Moines River are safe, and the river that they enjoy all summer is safe to be on and to have the water from that river splash onto their bodies. Toxic wastewater pollution from coal ash can cause cancer. It can damage kidneys and liver, and is linked to reproductive harm and fetal developmental issues. And it isn't just human beings that are affected. Wildlife and fish are also impacted. The Sierra Club and its allies will continue to be engaged in this issue. And there are some things that you can do. Now, in summary, there will be a public hearing at some point about this draft permit and allowing the underdrain liquid to be trucked to the Ottumwa Water Pollution Control Facility. We don't have a date yet for that hearing, but the message is very clear. The pollution control facility is not equipped to handle coal ash leachate. nor is it equipped to handle the toxins and the pollution in the underdrain. Biological and chemical settling are ineffective at removing the toxins and heavy metals from that underdrain liquid. And the draft NPDES permit sets unsatisfactory limits on the pollutants that can be discharged from the sewage treatment plant to the Des Moines River. As I said, we don't know when the hearing will be held. We'll let you know, and we'll send out action alerts to all of our members and supporters so that they know when this is going to be. But in the meantime, there are several things you could do. The first is to let your friends and neighbors know about this. You can write letters to the editor. And on the next slide, Sierra Club is collecting responses and letters to the Department of Natural Resources. And this screenshot is what the screen will look like when you go to our webpage. And you can use this to enter a comment to the Department of Natural Resources. Jess will be posting that in the chat, so you can refer to it. And with that, I'll answer questions.
Thank you, Pam. And that link is in the chat if you want to take action now. And we do have a question here, Pam. What do the residents of Atumwa know about the water? Is this something that they're notified about?
So they would have to have picked it up from the newspapers or media, or they would have to be following this issue, watching the DNR permitting process. I'm concerned that many of the residents of Atumwa and the neighboring counties have no clue this is going on. And so that's part of the outreach that we're going to be doing over the next days and weeks.
Well, thank you very much, Pam, for giving us this information. It's really critically important to know this stuff, because how else are we supposed to keep ourselves and our environment safe if we don't know? So if you have any other questions later on, please put those in the comments or shoot us an email and we'll get back to you. Again, the link to take actions in the chat right now, so you can click that and take action. And we will see you again next Friday at noon. So thank you, Pam, and thank you everyone for joining. Have a nice day. Bye.